Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Boris Bergman from Datacolor, and I would like to welcome you to this webinar, Edit Like a Pro, Perfecting Your Image Editing Suite, a webinar in coordination with Wacom. I'm Boris Bergman from Datacolor, and I would like to welcome you to this webinar. Sorry, a little bit late. We had some technical issues, but that's a live situation. And I would like to introduce you to our presenters tonight. It's Dave Oduro from Wacom, and it's Richard West from Datacolor. Hello, you both. And that's it from my side now. I will hand you over to Rich, and we will see us at the end of the webinar where you have the possibility to enter all the questions you have, and Dave, Richard, and I, we will answer all of them. Rich, it's now your turn, please. I will hand over the moderator to you. 1 second. Here we are. And please share your screen with us. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Boris. Hi, guys. And hello, Dave. I take it you're with us as well. Can you say hello if you're there? I'm
Hello.
assuming he's miming at this point. Oh, no, there he is.
How you doing, guys?
Hello, Dave. Yeah, Dave's had a little bit of fun and games logging in tonight, but not to worry, because I'm going to kick off the session anyway, so I'll be taking us through the first sort of 20, 25 minutes, I suppose, and setting the scene, basically. So let's pop into some slideware, and it's not going to be all slideware tonight, folks, so don't worry. I'll be mixing it up with a bit of demonstration and a bit of presentation, but fundamentally what we're running this evening's session to do is to support a promotion that Wacom are running at the moment, and very good promotion, so hopefully if you don't already know about it, then you should do soon. And it's called the Cintiq Bonus Program, and that's because Wacom have been increasing their breadth of products in the Cintiq range. They've got some cracking products out there, and basically they're now running a very nice little promotion, which means that if you buy a Cintiq tablet from Wacom during, well, any time now up till 31st of October, there's a nice choice of bonus options to take alongside that. You can apply basically to get a free piece of Datacolor kit. Is one of the very delightful prizes. In fact, there's a whole range of them, as you can see there on the right-hand side of the screen. Depending on the type of tablet that you go for, you get, for instance, a different type of Datacolor product. And of course, tonight, I'm sure for some of you, you may already be aware of Datacolor's products, but maybe you're not aware of all of it. I'm going to try and breeze over some of the existing stuff, so it gives you a background. If you're not aware of what Datacolor is all about, we're here to do color management, basically. And of course, that ties in very heavily with the Cintiq range, because you're talking about visual tablets essentially that can now totally remove the need for any other form of display, basically. So that's really where now being able to color manage those tablets, those screens on those tablets is every bit as important as it is to do so in any other realm of graphic arts and design. But what we'll do is we'll set that scene to start off with, just to give you a bit of a background to, okay, color management. What are we trying to solve here? What's the issues? Well, of course, the issues for yourselves are really growing all the time, because probably like me, you're getting more and more devices in your setup, which has more and more selections of screens, because you're getting things like tablet computers and phones and half phablets, whatever's coming next, basically. But of course, the Cintiqs are just adding to that plethora of devices, and of course, they're being used across multiple different avenues as well, basically. But the key thing is, if you've got these many different types of devices, many different types of screens, and maybe you're wanting to get into a professional delivery of images or of content, and that content could be actually video, of course, couldn't it? It could be graphic design, it could be photography and photographs, but anything visual, basically. The thing you've got to be aware of is, okay, you spend a lot of time getting those images correct, but you want those images to look the way you've been retouching them. So you want people to be able to see them how you've intended them to be seen. And that's a lovely thing. It sounds easy, because we all think that these manufacturers of these devices have wonderful technologies that allow this to be done instantly, but different types of TFT and different types of substrate go into the screens nowadays, and naturally, different manufacturers are going to end up with different types of image, just slightly different. I mean, I've been very impressed in working with Dave on the prep for this evening's webinar and other events around the country, basically, where the Cintiqs now are just getting far better color-wise than anything that I've been using before. I mean, I've always thought of the ISOs as being sort of the pinnacle of color gamut as far as displays are concerned, but the 24 HD is just stunning. But I'll show you that in a little bit and explain why it's so much better than other devices out there. So having set the scene, you've got this situation where we've got lots of different devices, all displaying colors subtly differently. And that may be because they've got bigger color gamuts, or it may be just the way that they're set up. But of course, even within the same manufacturer, if you've got all the same devices, all the same type of screens, you're going to get differences due to just different batches of production. Obviously, again, they're intended to be correct, but when you're talking about accurate color rendition in an environment where it actually matters, like photography, like graphic arts, like animation, like design, like video, then a small adjustment down to a different substrate being used for a display can make a massive difference. So you need some means of controlling that. And of course, aging as well. We're all aging. My predecessor to the machine I'm working on at the moment, I've got a MacBook here, and basically MacBook Pro, and the Retina display on this is actually not too bad, but the preceding one, I was finding out what the colors that it could display using my Spider, which we'll tell you about in a little bit. And effectively, it was telling me that this thing had lost 4 or 5% of its color over a period of about 6 months. Not a good situation, but that's down to phosphors burning out and the way monitors age, the same as the rest of us, basically. And of course, you do need to be able to take into account the different types of marketplaces, as I say, because it is equally as important to be talking about video nowadays and getting things right in video as it is in stills photography, as it is in animation. Whatever it is that you're trying to create, if you're doing it professionally, you need to be able to deliver the colors that you want to be seen and not have that nice little design in the middle there that's got pinks and blues in there coming out slightly orangey, slightly grey. It's not what it's intended to do. Obviously, it's important to get it right. So that's where we've got color management coming into the scenario. And of course, it's not just about technology. The things you need to take into account in any color managed environment are things like yourself, because you can see things differently. And this is just a little sort of game that we play on these sort of sessions, or one of the many ones we play. Basically, what I'd ask you to do, a bit of audience interaction or participation, but don't worry, you don't have to comment or say anything yourself. Stare at the white dot in the center of the screen, please. Keep staring at that white dot. And effectively what we want you to do is just to focus on that dot. Obviously you can see there's 2 different screens there unless you're colorblind, which throws into a different scenario entirely, but we talk to you about how to solve that later on as well. But keep staring at that white dot in the center of the screen. Keep staring at that white dot in the center of the screen. Now, when I do that, instantly for me, possibly the same for yourselves, or it may be reversed for yourselves, the image on the left-hand side of the screen is becoming very orangey, and the one on the right-hand side is sort of yellowy, certainly lighter. Actually, they're exactly the same image. What we're trying to point out to you here is it's not just about technology. You need to be using the technology in a sensible fashion. This is proving to you that your eyes, actually, the rods in your eyes, basically, are changing to, adapting to the colors that are going on around it. It's what you're seeing, basically. There's residual data coming into your brain from the fact that you saw one side was a red square, the other side was a green square, so therefore it's affecting how you're perceiving things. So this is something you need to be aware of, basically. The other thing you need to be aware of is not just the way your eyes and the chemistry in your eyes affect how you're perceiving things, but also your brain. Because in this little scenario here, I just want you to take a look at squares A and B. Just decide for yourselves which is the lighter square. Now, I would imagine a large proportion of you would be saying, okay, B, obviously. It's a lighter square, because your brain is interpreting the squares. It knows it's a checkerboard pattern. It can see there's a shadow from that green cylinder there, and it's got a little black B or a dark B and a little light A on the square, and yet they're the same color. It's just that you're perceiving them even now differently because of the way that your brain is telling you to interpret them. So you may be thinking, okay, I can see this is important to how I'm perceiving colors, but what's the score here? Well, the point we're trying to make to you is, okay, don't rely on the joys of your eyes or your brain to make your color decisions, whether it's on a beautiful Cintiq or a laptop display or a separate screen. You need to have a device that's going to measure color across all of those. And that's where Joys of the Cintiq bonus programs are helping you, because of course you might be able to get one included in the cost of a Cintiq. So not only get a fantastic tablet, but also get a free or included in the cost device to solve your color problems. But don't think that you can do this color management just using the sliders on your screens and your eyes. It's not a good solution. What is the solution? Well, the solution is something called color sync, basically, or ICC profiling, the International Color Consortium profiling. And what we're going to do is we're going to quickly just pull up something. It's called a color sync utility. I just wanted to bring this up. Oops. No, I didn't want to bring up CyberDuck. We'll quit that in a second. Bring up the color sync utility to show you exactly what we're talking about here. Because what we've been talking about is color profiles. That's how screens are described. So therefore, I'm going to talk about a device in a minute called the Spider, which can actually produce these color profiles. You can attach it to your screens, and you can read the colors that those screens can actually display. And not only can it do that, it can actually correct the colors if they're out of true, if you like, out of the international, the ICC standard, basically. And what we're looking at here is a little three-dimensional application that comes built into your Mac. It's free, it's in there. If you've got a Macintosh, it's been there since, I don't know, Tiger. And on the Windows platform, if you're on Windows, then there's also an application called Color, which is very similar. It does similar sort of things, basically. And what it's doing is it's giving us the opportunity to have a look at visually a visual representation of color profiles. So this here, for instance, has Adobe RGB. And if we just sort of hold that for comparison, those essentially are the colors that you can actually display with Adobe RGB. So if you set your camera to shoot in Adobe RGB, or you retouch in Adobe RGB, these are the colors you're saying you can see. Now, down here, I've got, for instance, my laptop. Now, you can see there, that's a substantially smaller color space. So what it's telling me is those are the colors that I can display on my laptop. Nice Macintosh Retina display in this case. This is this massive area of Adobe RGB. So if I'm actually retouching in Adobe RGB, I'd be a bit daft, really, wouldn't I? Because I can only see these colors. These colors, ironically, if we just have a look at sRGB, you'll see they're fairly similar, aren't they? So evidently, I would be far better off working in sRGB than I would be in Adobe RGB on this particular display. However, let's have a look at, as mentioned, some of the other devices we got down here. I mean, I mentioned previously the ISO screens, very good screens. So let's have a look at an ISO screen. You can see that. Well, that's obviously substantially better. That's somewhere around 97, 96, 97% of Adobe RGB. So if you've got that sort of screen, you should be using it. And down here, we've also got our Cintiq 24 HD. Look at that. That is superb, because that is actually slightly bigger than we're getting on the joys of the ISOs in certain dimensions. So that's really showing you that not only are we talking about with Cintiqs a tablet that does everything a tablet would do. You can use your pen tool on there. You can draw with it, design with it, retouch with it. You're actually talking about a fantastically color-capable screen as well. So how do we make sure everything matches? How do we get everything looking correct? Well, that's where we go to the joys of a Spider. So a Spider, market-leading device for color management. Basically, what it is a USB-based device. Plugs into your computer via the USB port, obviously. Hangs onto the screen or the device, or reads essentially transmitted light. So anything that's bouncing back off of, for instance, a projector screen, or anything that's coming out of a tablet, Cintiq tablet, anything that's coming off of a tablet device like a well-known tablet computer, then that's where you can read these transmitted colors, because it's just reading it. Essentially, what you can see in the image here, the person's holding it against the screen. You don't actually have to do that, but essentially, the bit that they're holding against the screen is the bit that reads the screen's details. And what happens is essentially the device comes with a bunch of software, Mac or PC, doesn't matter which, and you run the software, and it runs. It's very simple software. Gives you a few tips and tricks to start off with, and then it starts running a selection of color swatches in front of the eye of that device, the sensor on that device. That device reads it, and at the end of the process, it takes about, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. It says, okay, hang on a minute, this isn't quite true. This isn't quite in a controlled color environment. Press save now, and it will adjust that. It will also create the profile. It will show you exactly how that display is displaying. So it will not only correct it, it will also make sure that you know what the colors are available to you today. Because, for instance, on my screen there, you saw that was exactly what we'd done there. We'd run a spider on my Retina display, and that showed you that I had just about the sRGB color gamut that I could see. We'd also run the same device on some of the Wacom tablets, and you saw on that 24 HDT. That one was giving us essentially Adobe RGB, all bar 1 or 2% basically. So it's telling you you've got all those colors to play with. It's immediately giving you this heads up that, okay, for starters, which color space you should be working in. And secondly, it's giving you this control to actually correct the colors. Now, obviously, you can't stretch a smaller color gamut display, so therefore the bigger the display, the better, the bigger display gamut rather, the better the display. So therefore that 24 HDT, fantastic. But at least it's going to make sure that what it can display is going to be color managed and matching the same sort of color environment as anything else that's been color managed as well. So that's the purpose of doing this. Now, there's 3 different types of spiders. Important to mention this because, as you saw at the start, there's different types of spiders being given away as part of, or being offered up as part of, this Cintiq bonus program, basically. So the Express, just so you're aware, does 1 screen on a device. So therefore, if you have, for instance, your computer and you've got a laptop, it would do your laptop. If you've got your desktop machine and you're running your 24 HD off it, it will do your 24 HD, your Cintiq tablet, basically. So it's going to do one display per machine. You can move it around as long as you own the machines, and you're going to be able to move that around. But basically, it's the entry level, so it's allowing you to do 1 display. The Pro, the higher end, basically, so the Pro and the Elite, essentially the same sort of device. They both come with ambient sensors, so they're going to do more of that checking around for the environment that you're in. So that little eye test that I gave you there to show you how things that are around you or that you see can affect your perception, that's being taken into account far more by the Pro and the Elite with that ambient sensor. We'd still advise you, okay, don't sit in front of your screen when you're working on it in a bright red t-shirt against an orange background, because it will affect how you're seeing things. But hey, the Pro and the Elite have got an ambient sensor that will adjust and accommodate for changes in ambient lighting conditions. More importantly, the Pro and the Elite can be used on a device with multiple screens. So I could use it on my laptop, with my Cintiq 13, with my ISO display, with etc. etc. So therefore I've got much more capability there with the Pros to do multiple screens. The Elite is the top end, actually. That's the top of the range, basically, and that's the one that allows you to do, for instance, matching of screens within a design studio, so you can force every screen to adopt the same profile. It'll also do multi-point sensing, so that sounds posh. What it's doing is it allows you to move it around the screen to test if there are hot spots on the screen. So that's the 3 different parameters, and so they come in the Cintiq bonus program there. So you've got a range of different options there. You can see, so the Pro, the Elite, and the Express there as you run down. That hopefully gives you an idea of, okay, great, why are Cintiqs good as a tablet to be working on in the first place. Dave's going to give you more of a feel for that later on when he talks through the how to use the Cintiqs and the different benefits of the different types of device there. Possibly it's filling in the gaps for those of you who weren't aware of how to get them color managed. The one at the top there, the 13 HD, comes with the Spider Cube as the bonus option, basically. And of course, this is something else that we should consider. We've looked at color management. What we've looked at so far, if you like, this is a fairly sort of standard, we'll call it a photographic workflow, but to be honest, it's sort of similar to any sort of creative workflow, i.e. at one end you're going to be capturing images, or maybe getting them delivered to you. At another end, you're going to be outputting those images. But in the middle, that steps 3 through 5, we're talking about, essentially, we're emulating a timeline. It's supposed to be the same screen in this case, but we're seeing it over time. Because what's happening in this scenario is you're capturing an image, and it's looking fairly sort of neutral, grey on step 2 there. You're taking it into a screen which isn't color managed, and it's got a bit of a green cast to it. So in steps 3 through 5, the obvious, if you're not color managed, the obvious impulse is to try and return that image to how you saw it, looking neutral without the green cast. So in step 5, you've done all that heart-rending retouching to get the image back to how you saw it, or how you think you saw it. And then when you go to output it, or send it to output, or send it to print, or wherever it's going to go, actually your end result is going to come out looking red, or maroon in this case, because what you're actually doing is you're ruining a good image because you're looking at it on a non-color managed screen, and you're wasting your time as well. So what we've done by talking about the spiders, and the Spider 4 is to, the range of different spiders there you get with the Cintiq bonus program, is we've removed out that step 3 through 5. So you can now trust what you're seeing. So what you see at step 3 as it was is the same as what you're getting at step 5, i.e. there is no change of the image over time. You're just outputting it once you've got it to how you want it to look as far as any other type of retouching is concerned. However, there are other elements, aren't there? There's also things like the back end, printing basically. So your printing might be off, your printer type, different types of stock. If you print out an image or send it to be printed out on yellow stock versus fine art stock versus gloss stock, you're going to see that image looking differently. And that's exactly what we're doing here, or we're seeing here at steps 6 through 7. You're seeing a change in that image. Now, fortunately, we've got a tool to address that. It is a separate tool. It's called the Spider Print. It's a device that actually prints out a whole selection of color swatches from the printing device that you're going to be using, and reads those and creates a profile for that back end. Now, we're not going to talk about that further tonight because it's for another night basically. So come back to one of our other webinars and we can cover that off at another night. But just to say, we do have a solution for that. For a lot of us, we're using other companies that are printing out anyway, so that's less relevant nowadays than it has been in the past. But the one thing that, for those of us who are capturing images, is still something you should be aware of is this front end of things. Because what if that's step 1? What if actually there was a yellowy cast to that image? I'm using casts here, but ultimately, what if the colors were different? I thought I got it in there correctly into my workflow, but what if I hasn't? Well, we've got a range of different tools, of which that Spider Cube we mentioned there as being the bonus accessory for the 13 HD. That's the tool that is the solution to that, or one of the two tools. You're seeing here the Cube and the Spider Checker, in fact. So let's have a quick run through how they work, because it's part of our camera front-end capture solution, basically. We've got the Cube there, just next to the camera. Spider Checker, the lens count, we won't be talking about that tonight, that's for lens calibration. And then there's the new Spider Checker 24. We'll just quickly cover these off, basically, so you've got a gist of how they work. Fundamentally, what we're giving you, first of all with a Cube, is something that is known. We're giving you something that is cubic, ironically, that's hence the name. It's about, 4 centimeters along a side, and as you look at it just in the bottom right-hand corner there, you can see it's got a little nodule at the bottom. That's actually a spindle, so you can actually mount it onto a tripod or a lighting stand, and also, obviously, you can see it could be hung there as well. But what it is, most importantly, is a selection of colors that you know, or rather we know. We know that the 2 gray triangles at the top of the cube there are both exactly the same. They're both 18% grays. The 2 white triangles, both exactly the same, both 96% whites. And the black face, that what appears to be a black dot in the middle of it, that's a 4% black. And what it's doing is it's giving us a solution to this problem now. Here we've just got half an image here, but essentially we're saying we've taken a shot, but we don't really know whether that is greeny yellow leaves on a beige background, or is it perhaps vibrant green leaves on a white background, or, was it less contrasty that? Was it more contrasty? We don't know what we took here. Now, in the world of taking leaves, that's probably not so important. It's something that perhaps not a lot of us do all the time. However, for those of us who do anything like photographing of events, sports, locations, weddings, being able to control and find out exactly what that color situation is, the lighting situation is, and the contrast situation is where you took it, means that you can start controlling your workflow and getting things right. Essentially what we're doing with the Spider Cube is giving you a guide to aim for. Because we know the values there, we're throwing something into your images that, and don't have to be in everyone, just has to be in an image of it in the lighting conditions that you're working in, gives you something to refer to. So let's just quickly pop out of the slide where, as I say, and let's go into, I'm going to go into Camera Raw here. You can see I've got Camera Raw open. And what we've got here is that very same shot. You can see I've got my added gamut areas on at the moment, so you can see how, okay, I'm showing at the moment, I've got pretty much an overexposed shot. You can see that from the histogram. It's all over on the right-hand side in the highlight end. Not a lot of detail in the left-hand side. So the fact that I've got my Spider Cube in there, I know how to adjust my exposure and my color casts, my white balance basically, in order to correct for this. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up our white balance tool. I'm going to drop that onto the lighter side. So one of the important things about the cube, for those of you who may have seen this sort of thing before, this is like a grey card, but it has the advantage of not being a card and not being big as a result. You know, this is something you can slip into a coat pocket, jacket pocket, bag very easily. But also it's three-dimensional. It is cubic. And the benefit of that is, compared to a card, with cards you have to angle them at 45 degrees to the lighting conditions of the inclement light, the prevailing light. So therefore, what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, actually, because this is cubic, this bit where my little cursor is at the moment is pointing towards you. So therefore, I know I've got one side here in shade and one side in light, i.e. I know the light is coming from the left-hand side of this shot. That's the side that is roughly about 45 degrees to the light. So as long as I have this black face with a little dot pointing towards me, then I know, okay, great, I'll choose the lighter side to set my white balance, which I just did. So we can just undo that just to show you again. So there, that's where we were. We just used that left-hand side in this instance because it was the lighter side to set the white balance, because I know that's where the light's hitting, so that's where it's coming from, so it's about 45 degrees. And therefore I know, okay, great, that's an 18%, that's well, that should be a 96%, but we know at the moment it's over 100% because we're getting burnout there. So what we need to do now is just adjust our highlights down. So just take that down until they're pretty much just losing that burnout, that out of gamut area there. And we know that's roughly the right sort of readings now as far as the light, the highlights are concerned. It's about 96%. Now around here, this black around this dot, in fact this dot is a hole, so it's really a catch light, a true black if you like. So that hole is supposed to be 100%, and the black around it is supposed to be 4%, so 100%, I should say 0% if you like, 0% color reading, or 100% black. So in order to adjust that, to get this contrast levels correct with this device, what we're going to do is we're going to just drop down our blacks. You can see the histogram leveling off as I do this, and just when I start getting my black clipping coming in here, at that point I now know, great, I've got 100% black in there. That means that's about 4% black around the hole, because I can see some texture in there. It's not got 100%, so I know it's just under 100%, so it's exactly what we're looking for. And also, this little ball, it is a silvery ball up the top of the cube here, and in this case we're hanging it into the scene, because we can. That little ball has got a little bit of red clipping still in there, and what that's telling us is that's 100% white there, and that's good, because that's actually intended to be showing 100%. That's a silver ball. It is supposed to be a catch light. It's catching anything that is out of gamut. If there's any out of gamut, that's where it should be on this target. So what we've done now is we've actually set this up correctly. So we now know we've actually set the contrast and the cast removal exactly how we want it. So of course that's where we just need to save that as a new setting, and then we can apply that time and time again. So this is giving us a controllable solution to camera capture. So really important within our workflow here, and puts us in this nice situation of being able to control our workflow. Of course, it sits alongside actually the 13 HD in the Cintiq bonus program, so it's a great tool to add into that scenario. Um, it actually comes. It's a little brother of the Spider Checker, so that's the other device we've got in the range here. I'm just going to quickly show you that. That essentially is a full color chart. What it's doing is it's giving you the opportunity to correct for where you've got different color casts because you've got multiple lighting conditions. For instance, in the joys of weddings, when you've got shots in the church in one lighting condition, shots in the reception in another, shots outside in natural light, where things look like a hodgepodge of different colors and things aren't correct, you can adjust and address that and balance those colors to get them all looking the same as they should be using the Spider Checker. Let's quickly show you. Essentially, it's about an A5 sized fold out solid device. Looks kind of like a tablet computer when it's closed, but when it's open, obviously you can see the faces here. The way you use it, very quickly, we're just going to pop in to show you how to use this. So we're going to go the other way into Lightroom here. What we've done is we've been at a wedding here. We've decided, okay, great, we're going to take some shots and we're going to drop in our Spider Checker into the lighting conditions. We've done that in every one of the lighting conditions. We just use it exactly the same way, but just a little bit further than we did with the Spider Cube to set the entire color range, to get the color range correct. So what we do is we, first of all, take out any color cast using our white balance tool, as in this case we're using Lightroom. We then just check our readings, so that white square at the top there should be about 96, which it is, 96% grey, white, whatever you want to call it. And down the bottom here, this should be about 4%, so it's somewhere around there. We're up against time because we started a little late, so I'm just going to say, yep, that's correct. What we're going to do here, though, is actually comes with software with the Spider Checker, which we can actually pop open, and that allows us to just essentially calibrate for that lighting condition. So we're just running the software there, popping it open, checking for any updates, and essentially we've got our selection of colors here, which are known colors. So as opposed to you having to go through with a little color checker and check each square, the software is doing it for you. You just need to make sure, in case you haven't shot it square on, that you just overlay the right colors onto the top of the grid there. You're just using this to essentially make sure it's in perspective, basically. And then that's it. So save the calibration, give it a name. So we'll call that Wacom 1 or 2, and click on OK. And that's instantly saved our calibration. And what that means is in our presets down here, user presets in Lightroom, for instance, we just get a whole bunch of different color profiles, which, given the right sort of situation, actually, let's just take this one back to, let's reset that. That's how we shot this, but I know that I've used a Spider Checker here just to set up the correct color balance here, so let's remove the colors out. So we're still getting the warmth of the inside, but we're not getting everybody looking so tangoed, basically. So, very swiftly trying to catch up on time here. We've run through the joys of the device, of the Spider Checker. As mentioned, this is something that is essentially a solid device, works in these three softwares, the Photoshop, Lightroom, and Hasselblad Focus. Comes with even things like fade checkers to check whether things are fading, because it is two cards within there, basically, that come with one side with skin tones on with general colors there, basically, and essentially gives you this control with a gray card on the back of those as well, so you can actually be shooting and capturing the correct colors at the front end of the workflow. And it has got a new companion. Just launched is the Spider Checker 24. Just come out, and it's actually probably around £39 for a Spider Checker 24. So compared to the other devices there, which Spider Checker itself is all the way up to £130, the Spider Checker 24 is a nice little entry-level device. But you can download the software, very similar to what you've just seen, in fact the same software, but works on just the one card, one side of it. So essentially you're getting half of the Spider Checker's functionality almost, but you don't get the same robust case and so on. But it's a great way of getting into that control at the front end of your workflow. So we told you about this because we can't actually give away, or we can't actually add in all of our data color products into the Cintiq bonus program tonight, but you've got a lot of them in there. Dave, I'm going to hand over to in a few seconds to run through on the Wacom side of things. But just remember, if you are working in anything outside of just photographic workflow, if you're working in graphic design, animation, or video, then these tools can be used in that environment as well. So, for instance, the Spider Checker can be used with Blackmagic Resolve software. The Spider works with the Atomos video screens. And in fact, if you want all of these nice little tools together in one nice little package, and you also want to be able to do things like video creation and be able to do massive TV screens as well and video reference displays, then you can get all the elements we've been talking about tonight separately, or you can buy them as a box. And the bundle basically comes in as something called our Spider HD, comes in a nice pack with the nice little solid case, and you get about £100 off of the between 70 and £100 depending on where you're buying, off of what you would have been paying for the individual elements. Maybe not relevant for those of you who are getting the Cintiqs. So if you're going to buy a Cintiq, of course you won't need one of those elements tonight. So just as well you've seen the fact that you can get some of the extra bits outside of that package. But for those of you who are looking to get something specifically around the video settings, you do need to get the Spider HD. If you're shooting video, if you want your video screens to be calibrated correctly, get the Spider HD. So now, with waiting with bated breath, we're going to see whether Dave is able to talk or not. Are you, Dave? Oh.
I am, Richard. Thank you very much for the introduction. So, as you've rightly said, and thank you for talking about the promotion in terms of working with our Cintiqs and actually getting the best colour out of our units, just to make sure that whatever I'm looking at and seeing, whatever I want to produce it out to, I'm going to get it. So there's not going to be any types of casts or anything else like that. So in terms of looking at the Cintiq range, if you want to flick the screen there for me, Richard, if you don't mind. We've come a long way when we actually take a look at the Cintiqs. We actually, when I first started working with the Cintiq way back when I was actually working in distribution, and I was a pre-sales consultant for Wacom back then. I only had the Cintiq 15 and Cintiq 18, and when I look at the resolutions on those things, I think it was 1024 by 768 and 1280 by 1024. You know, and if I look at the pressure sensitivities and things like that, they are probably not even the same as the little baby bamboo tablets or the the basic entry level tablets that we've actually had currently to this day. So when I look at the way that our Cintiq has grown in so many ways, especially when it comes down to the range, but also in terms of the sales cycle as well, the Cintiqs. When I look at the gap between the first generation, second generation, the Cintiq 21. So this was a 4:3 screen that we had. So we weren't looking at wide screens back then, 1600 by 1200 in terms of resolution. It's a gap of 5 years. It was a gap of 5 years, and it took a long time to go from one release date to another as well. So when I look at what we've actually got, we have a true range now. So when I look at things such as the Cintiq 13, the 22s and the 24s, you have the options with the 22s and the 24s with touch. So we've noticed that, you know, over the past few years, if you look at the devices which are out there, especially when you start looking at your phones, you start looking at your tablets, the actual interaction is going to be about finger gesture, but also multi-finger gesture as well. We've seen this and we've noticed this, and we've allowed this to come to be something that you can actually customize actually within your Cintiq as well. When I look at the way a Cintiq works, it should be geared around how you want to work, not the other way around. So when it comes down to how you want to program within your application, so if you're working within Photoshop, if you're working within Lightroom, if you're working with Phase 1 or anything else like that, or any other type of software, Aperture or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you want to work in terms of your shortcuts, you can actually put those shortcuts in, and they can be application specific for you. Rich, could you please change the slide, please, if you don't mind? So, looking at the Cintiq 13, so this is our, this is where you start, really. This is where you come in terms of the entry level in terms of Cintiqs. If I look at the predecessor to this, which was the Cintiq 12 WX, it was 1280 by 800. So the resolution was a lot smaller. Also, in terms of the colors, it was actually a lot darker as well. Back then, when it came down to actually to the design of the product, we had to have a bit of a trade-off. It was a difference between how bright we can actually make it and how light the actual unit is going to physically be. The actual weight of it was roughly about 2 kg. When I look at the 13, we've almost halved that, which is great. The idea in terms of the stand as well, you've got actually 3 inclines. You can actually have it flat if you wanted to as well. So again, you're going to be looking at inclines of 22 degrees, 35 degrees, and also 50 degrees. So you can actually have it in different ways for you as well. The thing with the Cintiq 13 is that it's a monitor which is going to be geared up for all different types of operating systems. When I look at creatives along the way and along the line, we get guys who work on a PC background because they're into games and development in terms of illustrations and drawings. We've got guys who are on a Macintosh background because that's what they've known, that's what they've grown with, and they run graphic design applications. They run Aperture off them, and it's got a great heritage in terms of the graphics area. And again, we can also run in Linux capacities, especially if I look at a lot of the video industry, for example. For a lot of the guys who are working in the States or in Soho or even in India, they actually have Linux setups as well. So we've got to make sure that we can cover all different types of creators which are actually physically out there. So this unit can actually quite happily fit onto a computer with a HDMI connection, and if you haven't got a HDMI connection, you can get adapters, and Bell can do adapters, Canex do adapters, Apple do adapters. There's a lot of adapters which are physically out there. So again, you can easily just plug this into your computer, and it will see it as your primary monitor or your secondary monitor. And you can also configure it so you can use it to control your whole desktop as well if you want. It's completely up to you. Lighter cabling. When I look at the previous version, what we had was one cable. It was a fixed cable. So with this one, it's detachable, and it went through to a box. And that box is where you controlled everything. You controlled the brightness, you controlled the contrast, you controlled the color, you controlled the temperature. You did everything within that box. Now, off that box, you had your cables off that too. So you had your monitor cable, you had your USB cable, you had your power cable. So for you to transport that with your laptop, for example, it was quite cumbersome, quite bulky. So what we decided to do was do away with the box. So now when it comes down to you changing your brightness and your contrast and everything else like that, that's all software. It's all software dependent. So it's all down to sliders. So you can pick your colors, you can pick your temperatures, and you can take your brightness and your contrast, and you can just use sliders to do that. Also, what we did was make sure you got the Pro Pen as standard. So it comes with a really nice box with all your different nibs. You actually get a set of 9 nibs to go with it as well. It's got a really nice finish to it, a really plush finish to it as well. So again, it's a little bit longer as a unit, but this is completely interchangeable with pretty much all the Cintiqs which is out there in terms of arcade technology. Rich, if you don't mind actually
Sure.
flipping the...
As I say, Dave, it was the 13 that was really impressive, wasn't it? From when we were doing the color calibration, working out the profiles. I mean, that was bigger profile than my Retina display on the laptop, and that's for just the 13. So
Yeah.
really impressive stuff.
Yes, I mean, if I look at where we are and where we're at, I mean, the actual screens themselves are pretty good, and we try to play it down as well, because a lot of people just think that a Cintiq is there for you just to draw on or to sketch on, or it just makes your edits easier, which it does do. But I've seen that the actual color off the screens, and especially who we use as well in terms of our screens, has got better and better. So if I look at things such as the Cintiq 24 and the Cintiq 24 Touch, these are our flagship units. They're big units. I won't lie to you. These are units where it's a resolution 1920 by 1200. In terms of the actual the actual monitor itself is counterweighted. So the idea is that, you know, it's nothing that is going to be really heavy for you to use or anything else like that for you to lift. When it comes down to it, including the actual counterweight itself, realistically, yeah, we're going to be looking about 30 kgs actually on there. Now, there is a slight difference between the Cintiq 24 and the Cintiq 24 Touch. The 24 Touch will give you 97%, and the Adobe and the Cintiq 24 will give you 92%. Again, when I actually look at it compared to a lot of the other monitors that are out there, for something where we've actually got a texture actually on the actual screen itself, and also where it's semi-resistant and semi-scratch proof as well, I think we've actually done quite a good job actually on there as well, which is something that we can be quite proud of.
Just to put that into context, mate, I mean, the average iMac looks at about 72% of Adobe RGB, the Adobe gamut. So massive compared to what you're getting on standard sort of displays.
Yeah, I mean, we see all of our Cintiqs as being at the pro level. We know who we team up with. We team up with Datacolor, we team up with Adobe, we team up with Autodesk, and all the industry standard software developers, especially when it comes down to how we want to program the buttons and the keys. You know, you'll go into some type of application and you'll actually start using the express keys and the touch rings, and things just start to happen. So by default, you know, you can actually get brushes to become bigger or smaller quite easily. If I look at a lot of the express keys, they're going to be things such as the shift key, the alt key, space bar, because we can continuously moving around actually within Photoshop, especially if we're doing things such as skin retouching as well. When I start looking at a lot of the other the ways that we can actually go off and program, or how we want to control our desktop, again, when I look at things such as precision modes, if I want to be very, very fine and precise within a small section of that image itself, I can effectively change the ratio of my hand movements. So it's more like, if my hand moves at a 3-to-1 ratio, I can move it 3 times. But, you know, compared to where it's moving actually within that special area, it's very, very precise. So we've kept precision mode actually within that as well, which is a very, very handy thing to work with. For you to make sure that you get to the full range of colors, especially in the Cintiq 24 Touch, you do have to use the DisplayPort connection. Once you use the DisplayPort connection, it will actually boost you up to 1.07 billion colors. And once you get up to there, then you have this fullness in terms of the gamut and the range for you to work with. But yeah, the Cintiq 24s have done very, very well for us, especially when it comes down to a lot of photographic workflows from what I've seen throughout different types of franchises, which is pretty cool, pretty good. Rich, if you don't mind actually pushing me through to the next slide. Thank you. So, Cintiq 22 and Cintiq 22 Touch. Now, if I look back to the Cintiq 21, we had a stand, and with that stand, it gave you the ability to be really ergonomic, actually using the stand. Now, what it does, it actually allows the Cintiq to sit quite happily in a hub configuration. Now you can actually have it fixed to be completely at a landscape, but what I noticed a lot of people do, and I do this myself, is I've got the ability to actually tilt this thing up taking it up to 60 degrees, but also I can take it down as far as 10 degrees, so it can actually work like an easel. When I look at the Cintiq 24, for example, I can prop it up to 90 degrees, and I can have that as far down as 10 degrees. If I do want to do any type of rotation, I'd have to use the express keys to do it, or I'd have to use the ability to use touch actually within the Cintiq 24 Touch. Now, with the Cintiq 22 and the Cintiq 22 Touch, the contrast ratios are a lot higher and a lot sharper, but the idea is that you can really get around the image itself in terms of how you want to physically move it. So again, when it comes down to things which are very difficult in terms of masking, for example, And if you're using it for things such as selections, or if you want to use in terms of an alpha channel, and then you want to use your brush to be very soft in terms of creating those different types of edges, you can really get your hand to go around it instead of it being you having to kind of move yourself and try to get into very tight corners. So we see that as a big benefit for anybody who actually does want to work in that way. Again, when it comes down to the programmability, you've got 16 keys for you to work with. And again, when it comes down to programming these 16 keys, these can be 16 keys of how you want it to work. So they could be a combination of keys. So it could be, you know, step backwards, step forwards. It could be scrolling through in terms of Lightroom. It could be actually bringing up a radial menu. So that radial menu allows you to put in your workflow. So anything that you want to actually put in terms of a batch process or anything else like that, you can actually have that as a workflow, and you can actually drill down into that workflow to actually get additional tools in there as well. Instead of you actually having to create a right-click menu like so. Also, the unique thing with this is the touch strip. So where we've actually got touch rings on the front of a Cintiq 24, what you've got the ability to work with is touch strips which are actually behind. So anytime you press the button on the front, you can actually get it to go and flick through different commands, and then you can still zoom in, zoom out, still go off and do rotations, go through your different types of layers, or scroll through within Lightroom as well. So you've got the ability to work really nicely, really well, actually using a Cintiq 22 or Cintiq 22 touch. All of our touch units are all 10-finger touch. So you've got the ability to actually program how you want that touch to work. So you could set your 4 fingers in terms of swipes. So if you've been used to a Mac in terms of expose, or actually using mission control, or if you're used to Windows, using Windows 7, and again you can actually go off and work with Aero Flip or anything else like that. Again, you can actually use that in terms of navigating around your desktop, which is pretty cool. Cool. If Rich, if you can give me the next slide, please, that'd be cool. Thank you very much. So this actually brings me through to something which we've changed the dynamic a little bit, where if you can now imagine taking a Cintiq, taking a computer or an Android tablet, and you bring them together. So we now have a thing called a Cintiq Companion. You guys might have heard about it, you might not have heard about it, but we've had a lot of demand for people to be completely portable and actually going out there and actually they want to actually have the ability to work on the fly. So we've seen a lot of photographers now, especially in Germany and also in the UK, starting to take these things out and actually use them on sets, as it were, and on shoots, so they can actually see how they've shot, and they can actually start working directly there in terms of a lot of the edits that they want to work on, which is pretty cool. Now, when I look at the Cintiq Companion, we've actually divided it into 2 areas. We've got Cintiq Companion Hybrid, and we've got Cintiq Companion, which is a Windows version as such. Again, they're all multi-function. So again, they're all 10-finger touch and everything else like that. And again, what we do with them is that we actually give you a bag so you can carry everything in with them in terms of your power supplies, all your cables, and also the pen too. It comes with the Pro Pen, which is cool. Rich, if you don't mind actually passing onto the next slide, that'd be great. Okay, so Windows versions. So it's a full-blown Windows operating system, and you've got the choice of either Windows Standard or Windows Professional. Now, with the Windows Professional, you actually get the bigger solid-state drive, and when you actually start these things up, in terms of boot up, they're incredibly quick. So, you know, you press the start button on this, and you boot up in about 5 seconds. So it's incredibly quick to start up, and it's incredibly quick to shut down as well. The nice thing with these things as well is that you can actually get it to rotate. So you can have it in landscape mode, you can have it in portrait mode, You can have it joined onto another monitor. So if you're looking at doing any type of presentation work, showing off client work, you can get the actual Cintiq companion to speak to another monitor wirelessly as well. So with an adapter, or if it follows a wireless display compatibility on the actual specific screen or projector, it can work with that. You've got USB 3 slots, so again, it's really, really quick actually taking any information in. The GPU, again, is an Intel 4000 GPU. The reason why we chose that is because of how it works in terms of the wattage. So it doesn't take as much in terms of wattage compared to a lot of other GPUs which are actually physically out there. And also we've got i7 processors. So we've actually got them running very, very quickly as well. So you can happily run Lightroom on there. You can run the Creative Cloud on there. We've had guys working with Premiere, After Effects in terms of video effects on there as well. And the battery life, you're looking at up to 5 hours because of the wattage, but also you're using full applications on there too. So, you know, it's basically it's a studio on a computer, which is nice. The Android version, when I look at the Android version, it's a bridge. So the idea is you're looking more from an illustration perspective, I would say. So the idea is that you're running Android apps actually on there, but because it's a bridge, you can still plug it into your computer, so it works like a Cintiq 13. It's like a Cintiq 13 with touch. So you can quite happily run your Mac off it, run your PC off it, like so. And then if you do want to actually go back into an Android world where you want to go off and draw and sketch, it's really good for that as well. There's two versions, one which is 16 gig, the other one which is 32. And because it's running Android, and again, when I actually look at the processor, the NVIDIA Tegra chip, which again is the same speed and of the Windows i7 chip, and also in terms of the cores, you can actually get it to last a heck of a lot longer. We were actually doing some tests on some software like Sketchbook Pro, and it actually worked a lot quicker because it's a lot more lightweight compared to the Windows version, which is really, really cool. So, again, I'd like to thank Datacolor for this webinar, and I'd like to thank Rich for talking a lot about our products and doing a lot of tests. So a lot of the stuff that Richard was talking about today, he kindly came into our office to actually do the tests and actually show me the Spider Pros, Spider Elite, and the Spider Express, especially on our equipment. And I was actually impressed how easy it was to work with because it was all wizard driven. And again, you know, in terms of changing your brightness and your contrast on all the Cintiqs, again, that's very, very easy to do. So I'd like to thank Richard again for actually inviting us.
No, thanks, Dave. Thanks, pleasure, mate, and good working with you. I mean, and nice being your assistant tonight and forwarding the presentation for you, because unfortunately the technical fun and games that we've had meant that you couldn't drive your own presentation tonight, did it? So it was. I think next time if we have to do this, I'll obviously have to make sure I switch up your slides, and therefore you don't actually know what's going to come next, just to keep that little bit of excitement in there for you. Cool. Okay, thanks, Dave. Well, I think we better wrap it up. We're sort of over time. As I say, apologies, folks, for the not having run to time tonight, but we did have some issues beforehand. Just want to remind you the Cintiq bonus program is running until the end of October. So, are there participating outlets, or is it just anybody buying a Cintiq in that time can apply for the bonus scheme, Dave?
We do have our own partners who are out there. So we have people like Jigsaw Systems. We also have people like Bechler who are taking part. We have Trams as well. So a lot of our partners are actually taking part. But if you do buy a Cintiq for wherever you're going to get it from, please, you know, register it beforehand and to make sure that you get the correct product that you want as well. Yeah, so cool. Again, when I look at this in terms of the Datacolor stuff, it's excellent. So please get your spider or your cube as soon as you can.
Cheers, Dave. And for those of you who didn't or don't get a Cintiq, or rather get a Cintiq but don't get the spider checker, for instance, with it, and you might want a spider checker, having seen that tonight, or any of the other range of stuff that we do, we have no chance to cover off. We've got our own online store there, and lots of other outlets, obviously, that stock our stuff. But if you go to our online store, it's in euros in Europe. So if you're in the UK, you would have to be buying in euros. But there is a 20% discount on all items. We'll send you out a promotion code for that you can enter on the checkout, as far as that's concerned, tomorrow, with the follow-up email for the webinar. The 20% discount doesn't apply to the Spider HD nor the Spider Checker, the new Spider Checker 24, but it does apply to the Spider Checker, the professional product, basically. So if you get your Cintiq and get whichever bonus product comes with it, then you can always get any of the others using that discount code. The discount applies, I think, until September the 5th. So, but there'll be details coming out to you tomorrow in the thank you email for attending. So, wrapping it up quickly now, folks. If you do need to know any further information, because we've crammed a lot in tonight, but we didn't get it all in there. So, if you need to find out anything more about color management, please go to the URL on the page if you're in English-speaking world. Hopefully you are, otherwise this would have been a little bit of a waste of time for you this evening. Basically you can download a Spider ebook. We obviously do them in different languages, because look, there's a picture of the German one. But you can always search for the other ebooks that we do in the different languages we do, but 90-odd pages of gripping stuff about color management and how to improve your workflows and how to use things like profiles within Photoshop and Lightroom and stuff like that. If you have any other needs to see how to use stuff, because we buzzed through it quickly tonight, then we've got a whole bunch of videos. Go and search YouTube or go to our YouTube channel, basically, to see those, or even previous webinars we have on our webinar page, events page. Basically, you can always click through onto those. And lastly but not leastly, Boris, who's running the evening and is an hour ahead of us, and therefore it's even later for him. He's one of our top team of technical gurus who wait with bated breath to answer your questions, should you have any, on color management and all things colorish. So therefore, please feel free to either phone the free phone number. It is 2 zeros, because that's a European free phone number there, or go to our online ticket system, and you can pop in a ticket there. It's free to do so, and we'll come back to you with answers to your color management questions. Let me remind you of the Wacom Cintiq bonus program. This is how to register it, basically. If you buy a Cintiq before the 31st of October, I think the starting date was the 1st of September, if memory serves me correctly. Dave, you might want to confirm, or not?
Yeah. So basically, if you go off and buy a Cintiq now, quite happily, then yes, please register your Cintiq by the 31st of December. When you actually go off and do that, then we'll be able to make sure that you get your correct one out as quickly as possible.
Cool. Smashing. And so there we are, at least from tonight onwards. I think it was 1st of September, but I don't know. I'm sure details are on the site there. But there we go. It's been fun, folks. It's been entertaining trying to cram everything in this evening. But let's say a big thank you to Dave for his time. We will have a questions and answers session now. So if anybody has any questions, go to the questions window on the bottom of your GoToWebinar page, and you can pop in questions to us. I appreciate that we have run over, so as I say, I do apologize. Oh gosh, we have got quite a few questions actually. Dave, I don't know whether you